it's fine knowing what macronutrients are in foods. It's really important that we understand the difference between the foods that contain primary sources of protein, primary sources of refined and unrefined carbohydrates, and fats, you know, the good fats, and also the saturated and the trans fats, the bad fats. And it's also important that we understand, you know, what role they play within the body, and also how the body breaks them down and utilizes them for energy. But also within that, it's important that we understand how alcohol plays a part in that relationship too. So let's deal with alcohol first, because rather than thinking of it as as a nutrient, let's think of it as an anti-nutrient. There's 7 grams or 7 calories per gram in terms of you know, the amount of calories that you consume with alcohol. And what will happen is the body will break down alcohol first. It's always the first fuel to burn. The body can't burn alcohol and process fats. It's dangerous. It produces something called lectins, which is a byproduct, and when there's too much of it, the body just can't do it. So it'll always burn alcohol first. And if you think about how long it will take to burn alcohol, you think of 1 unit is roughly 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on your metabolism. So that means if you consume, you know, half a bottle of wine at night, your body is going to process that throughout the night, and it will wake you up at some point. Your sleep will be much poorer. But essentially, you can't burn fats while the body's burning alcohol. So you've missed a really great opportunity for the body to deplete itself of all its energy stores, so it uses fat as a primary fuel source. Alcohol, always the first fuel to burn. And then, in this order, the body will burn carbohydrates, proteins and fats. Now, the reason that the body does this is that the breakdown of carbohydrates, proteins and fats gets progressively longer. So it will break down carbohydrates really quickly. So it does that first, then proteins, and then last of all fats, because the process in breaking down fats is longer. So essentially what it means is if you've got all 3 of those elements in a meal, so let's take a real classic one, for example, and not a good example of food. Let's take a Big Mac. All right, it's got some poor proteins in it, in the fact that it's got some fatty meats. It's got some poor carbohydrates, some white devils with the bread, and it's got some trans fats with the hard cheese. It's not a great source of fuel. But essentially what will happen there is straight away the body will start breaking down the carbohydrates in the mouth. It'll create some salivary amylase, and it'll start breaking down sugars straight away. Now these will straight away get transported to the liver and the muscles, and they will get utilized for quick energy consumption or energy production. But that kind of means that the fat that you've got in that meal is going to get stored. And it's not a great thing to store masses of fat. What happens with a fat cell is a fat cell will grow and grow and grow and grow until it's too big, and then the body will go boop, and it'll make another one, a nice little small fat cell, and then that fat cell will grow and grow and grow until that's full, and then boop, body will make another one until that fat cell grows. Now that's fine, you know, if you understand this. That the body can never get rid of a fat cell. So once a fat cell expands and makes another one, it can only expand or shrink. So that might be that, you know, as the body stores fat as you get older, one of the reasons why you might feel like it's harder to shift that fat is that fat cell is only ever going to shrink. You're never going to get rid of it all. So you've got more fat cells, the more fat you put on, so it's a little bit harder to get rid of it. So anyway, let's go back to carbohydrates. It's always the first fuel to burn. If you've got other parts present, other macronutrients present, it'll utilize them next. Now, if you're worried about, if you're on a diet and you're thinking, right, the body breaks down carbohydrates, then proteins, and then fats, you know, am I going to lose muscle if I diet? And the simple answer is yes. The body will break down proteins, and the best way to minimize that is to make sure that you exercise, because exercise, and particularly strength training, is absolutely vital for building proteins. Not protein synthesis, which is different, but it's really important that when you're dieting, you exercise to combat the fact that the body will break down some proteins and some muscle tissue. It's really, really important. You know, if you can diet and you will lose weight, but it's not all fat loss. If you exercise and you diet, you're going to mostly have fat loss. so long as you eat the right foods. Okay, now fats, you often think about as fat as something that makes you fat. It's really not. Fats are really, really important in the body. They're massive for things like protein synthesis, which builds the muscle, and that muscle is metabolically active, so you burn more calories. It's a really nice, positive circle of momentum that fats really help lots of things, and it's important for all cell production, fat. So they're not the enemy, neither are carbs if you use them at the right times. And what I would say about the fats is you really want to avoid the trans fats, so anything that's solid at room temperature, and you want to be taking, other than avocados, but essentially avocado is a fruit with lots of good, healthy monounsaturated fats in it. And the fats that you really want to have in the body are the things like your olive oils and the stuff that you can put on salads or cook with, but watch the boiling point of fats. So there you go. That's a little bit of how the body is going to utilize your food. Alcohol always the first fuel to burn, and therefore anything else that you've got in the body will store. Okay. When a carbohydrate is put into the body, it's stored in the liver and the muscles. Actually, another thing about carbohydrates is when you've got carbohydrates in the bloodstream, it'll store them in the liver and the muscles until the liver and muscles are full. And it doesn't take an awful lot of carbohydrates before the liver and the muscles are entirely full. And what happens then is the body converts any excess carbohydrate into fat and stores it as fat, which is why you need to limit the amount of carbohydrates you take at any one time. So carbohydrates, and then it'll break down protein. So make sure that you're exercising if you're dieting. And then last but not least, it'll burn fat. Now that's what you want. You want your body to burn fat when you're trying to diet and lose weight. And the way that you need to make sure that you do this is give your body opportunities to burn fat. The two ways you can do this is to eat a low carbohydrate diet, so the body burns fat relatively quickly. And the other way that you can do it, which is a good example for vegetarians and vegans who have naturally more carbohydrates, is to have a period of fasting. So it's a great idea that, you go to bed at night having your last meal of the day, you sleep all the way through the night not having had alcohol, and then you maybe don't eat till lunchtime because you've given yourself a really long period of time where the body is depleted of glycogen and it can burn fat. Okay, I hope that helps. I hope that goes alongside with the course, so you've got a really good understanding of, what a macronutrient is and the effects that they have on the body.